Good day, my love. I have just committed one of the highest sins of the Lord, murder. I must flee the country now, in my vehicle. I have hidden the weapon. It was mine. I won't see you for a very long time, unless you come with me. If not, I will see you after the war, my love.
I'm not laughing at the situation, only at this video. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap, and I have missed you all this week. Boy, it's been a crazy week for me, anyway. I don't know about you guys. Good morning, Kim. When I was here last on Monday, never did I expect that I wouldn't be back until Friday, but that is how work can go sometimes, right? And duty calls. I have got moved, have lots of bills to pay. Work has to be number one. Unfortunately, I wish that weren't the case, but it is. Speaking of money, did you guys see that the one of the people who won in the Powerball? It was a grandmother, and I think she was the one. Is she the one in Texas? I can't recall, but gave all of the money to charity, and I was just really surprised by that. I haven't even had time to look at that, quite honestly. Since Monday, I haven't had time to look at anything. I have been working 2 hour drive in the morning, working for, 12, 13 hours or more, and then taking the 2 hour drive back home each day. It's been a really long couple of days, and I can't use my phone during that time because I'm very busy working. So I'm just kind of catching up to things. But I'll tell you what, either way, there's no shortage of things to talk about. Good morning, Michelle. I don't even know if anybody even knows I'm doing a show today because I knew that I was, but I haven't had time to go on and tell anyone that I am. But a lot of things I want to go over today. Some good, some not so good. Good morning, Robert. We're going to talk about a little bit more about Charlie Kirk. I know some people are probably tired of hearing about the case. I know people message me and they're like, it's not a conspiracy. Quit entertaining these conspiracy ideas. But if you're like me, I don't trust the government. I don't trust the media. I pretty much trust no one. So, therefore, to me, the possibility of some type of conspiracy is certainly possible. For some reason, one of my light over here is flashing. That I'm looking at this light, like, why? And so, not entertain the idea that maybe it's not what it seems to be. And good morning, Dee. And if you just saw that video that I played, that little clip of this guy, I don't even know who that guy is, but it's pretty funny. And he's making fun of those messages back and forth between Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs, but how can you not see that story as a possibility for some type of conspiracy? It's almost like it's set up to be a conspiracy to give us reason to talk. We are going to talk about that today. I'm going to show some video footage that I've never seen before, whether you have or have. Two things, actually. One is another man with what looks to me like a weapon. I don't think he's the shooter, but we don't know. We're going to talk about that. We're going to see a little bit of the angle of the trajectory because you can see a flash right above, like behind Charlie's head and above in that tent area where he's sitting, the backdrop. You can see a flash there, and I'm not really sure what exactly it was. And they're saying that it's the bullet. Some people are saying coming through, hitting him from behind. Some people are saying from forward and just making a straight shot through, not to be graphic, and going into that backboard. But if that's the case, then the angle doesn't make sense. Good morning, Darren. Lots of other things to talk about too. Of course, as a matter of fact, I'm going to remind myself of some of the things we are going to be talking about. A lot of you guys were sending me messages about the situation in Hanover, Pennsylvania, another situation that could definitely be a conspiracy. And, there was aware of it by now, of course, three Hanover, Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania police officers worked. What's it is all week. I haven't had time, so I'm catching up. You guys might know more about these stories than I am. I'm not going to be the most informative person today. You might be informing me more so. But part of the story that I heard was that the shooter, his name is Matthew J. Ruth. Well, there's a photo circulating online. Now, why do I haven't seen any official like mugshot. Maybe he didn't have a mugshot. I've not seen anything released specifically about this guy. I don't know about you guys. And what I do see circulating is a photo of a man that is not the correct R. Matthew J. Ruth. Sorry, I don't know what is happening over here. My light just keeps flashing on and off. And the photo that I keep seeing circulating is some guys kind of got that's not the guy. That is not the correct Matthew J. Ruth. The correct Matthew J. Ruth is a really thin guy with photo on a couple sites. I'm not going to post it because I have no way to confirm that that's actually him, but I know it's not the photo that's circulating. The Matthew J. photo is circulating. Everybody's passing around saying, "Oh, he's a MAGA guy. He's a Trump supporter. Blah blah blah. 24 years old." That's not the guy. This guy has come forward and he said, "Look, I'm not dead. You know, this is me still posting, still commenting, and I don't really know what's going on." And people, are informing him, "Hey, you better get an attorney because people think that this person was you." And it's a crazy story. And I know people, especially on the left, are absolutely losing their mind over it because they're like, "Oh, look, a white shooter. Oh, it's white people are the problem. It's not brown people. It's not black people. It's white people." Well, whoever said that white people didn't commit crime? That's what I'm curious about. As a matter of fact, I would say the majority of serial killers are white males. Well, of course, different types of crime have different types of suspects, and in this particular case, the reason why it's different from Charlie Kirk's assassination is it's not a very big difference between a case in which you have someone speaking their truth. And it's not even about Charlie. See, this is where we go down that other rabbit hole. Everyone wants to talk about how this is about Charlie and the hatred he was portraying and the things he spoke about. Yes, he did. He's a great debater, a great speaker. He goes around to the different colleges, but that's not why anyone would want to harm him. If you want to look at deeper, conspiracies, it's because has a multi-million dollar political action committee that pays people money to go out and get the vote for conservative candidates. And we're going to talk about the Israel connection here in just a moment. But the difference is in Pennsylvania, yes, it was a white man, 24 years old. Again, Matthew J. for James Ruth. He is the killer of the three Pennsylvania police officers. I don't know his political affiliation because I don't see that anybody's investigated the correct Matthew J. Ruth. They're all looking at a completely different guy. But this is a domestic violence situation that took place. And if you work in law enforcement, the most difficult, dangerous calls are the domestic violence calls. Why? Because of the fact that the emotions are high. They're very heated moments. And the woman who was stalked by Matthew Ruth, what she claims is that they dated very briefly, very relationship. He was seen on camera at her home looking through the windows. He set her truck on fire and he was making online posts and just a lunatic. I think most of us like this in our lives. It's a different story. It's a very tragic story, but it's also a very different type of situation. And so, no, the media is not going to call this out. They're not going to give it the attention that the Charlie Kirk case is getting because it's a completely different situation. Very sadly, there are domestic violence situations that take place all across this country, all across the world, but right here in the United States on a daily basis. And quite often, those perpetrators are white males, white women. And I don't think domestic violence has a specific race, gender, or color, quite honestly. Good morning, Peggy. Good morning, Sherry. Good morning, Nancy. And Darren, good morning, Darren. And I don't think, I just don't see how people are comparing the two situations. I really don't. I don't know why the media is not. I mean, killing three police officers, in my opinion, is a really big deal. It is a really big deal. These people are three men who put their lives on the line. They knew going out to a domestic situation, serving a warrant, that this could be a very serious situation. I know a lot of police officers, and I've talked to a lot of the particular case. It was in the St. Louis area where there were a multi-agency task force went out and they served a warrant. It was a domestic situation, and one of the officers was shot. We go out situation, we know that this is a very dangerous situation for us. Emotions are high. The moments are heated. And when it comes to some threaten their domestic partner or has harmed them in some way, the last thing they want to do, of course, is leave peacefully and go to jail. Very, very different situations. But of course, the left is going to run with it. They're going to say, "Oh, why aren't you guys talking about white people who commit crime?" Like I said, I don't recall a time when anyone said white people don't commit crime. If you look statistically at the crime that are committed, I think it's pretty clear that most of the violent crime uh, is committed by really, and I know they're going to say disproportionately by Black Americans, and disproportionately Black Americans are the people who are taking up space, of course, in our prisons across the country. I'm trying to say this very delicately, but the Black population makes up what, 13% of our population. The Black Americans make up about 13%. So how could anybody say white people don't commit crime when we are the majority? It's just a different type of crime. I hope that doesn't sound. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, lots to talk about today. I wanted to cover that because people keep messaging me about it, and it's frustrating to me. Because people want to send me private messages, and they're like, "Well, this white guy did this white guy did that." I'm like, whoever said white people didn't commit crime? White people commit crime all the time, but it's a different case, different scenario, different situation altogether, altogether. And Dottie says, "Good morning from very dry North Carolina. I am telling you, it's very dry here also, Dottie. Very, very dry. And we're supposed to get maybe a little bit of rain. I don't remember who it was, but yesterday somebody posted on Facebook the big X in the clouds. Somebody came through with the chemtrails and made a big X, and she's like, "Oh, that means it's getting ready to rain." And sure enough, I kid you not, where this person lives, where they posted that X, I don't think the person listens to this show, but where they posted that X, what do you think happened? We ended up getting storms yesterday in that area. I mean, we know their games, don't we? We know their games. And that's why when it comes to this conspiracy stuff, how can you not think more into it? I really don't know. How can you not think more into it? Now, one good thing that happened while I was out this week is that I saw that Donald Trump has determined, and I knew this was going to happen. You guys knew he talked about this in his last term, that he has designated Antifa a terror organization, which had to happen. Tammy says it rained this morning in southeast Missouri. I'm telling you, Tammy, I wish you'd send some of that rain my way. Good morning, Karen, because it is so incredibly dry. I haven't had time to go out in the garden, and I'm very worried. It's probably really dry out there. I've got pumpkins growing and squashes growing and okra and a bunch of other things. So I'm going to get I kid is worn out. Work, this week at least, and it's kind of funny, but it was so bad that when I left the building where I was at, I could make it. I wish somebody could like cart me down to get home. I'm in the car and I'm like, I was so every inch of my body hurts. And then I did make my way into the house, of course. Then I went to sleep. know more. I'm like, you guys know more about the news right now than I do. I'll just let you guys do the show and teach me something this morning. But we still have things that we can cover, even though I'm not up, and I apologize not for not being up on all the news as I should be. But we still have lots of things to cover. Antifa being a terror organization, that is a long time coming. It should have happened a long time ago. Now, here's the thing, and this is where what I want to find out, why I'm going to be following up with this situation is that yes, we have declared that Antifa is a terror organization, but what are we going to do about it? Yes, we are investigating the largest donors to Antifa. I don't think that's going to be difficult to do. I think we know who a lot of those donors are. But I think that we need to go a little bit step further than that. And I know people are not necessarily going to like this because people are going to say, well, that violates freedom of speech here in America. We're free. Well, first, or organization or you as a person are, then no, you've lost your rights to free speech. You have absolutely lost. And I think that our government under Donald Trump needs to go through every single, and they need to find a way for the algorithms to talk of trans power or Antifa. And yes, Donald Trump is surprised by this one, but he is talking about making the trans movement also a terror organization. To decipher, they designate all people to these different trans. Antifa is a very, very dangerous situation. Trans power kind of spiraled out from Antifa. Antifa is made up of, quite honestly, a lot of transgendered people. And a lot of people, people want to look at these Antifa members, if you've seen them, they would say, "Oh, they're all Democrats." These people don't care about democracy. They're they're not. I don't even know if I would call them Democrats, quite honestly. You know, somebody like Tyler Robinson, I don't think that he affiliates as a Democrat. A lot of these people, like Antifa, they just hate it all together, and they're anarchists. They're wanting to cause chaos after Democrats just as fast as they come after Republicans or conservatives. And good morning, Kelly. Good to see you. Good morning, Karen. And so I think it's very important for us to be able to go through social media, find out who these different groups are, go through Discord, go through Facebook, go through X, go through every group and start weeding these people out. Because quite honestly, it is time that we took a really firm stand. And I know people aren't going to agree with me this because they're going to say, well, it's a slippery slope. And sudden away from these platforms because guess what? What did Tyler Robinson do? He was in a group chat with other people. In that chat where he, made a lot of these different comments and confessed to the shooting, well, guess what? There were 20 other people in, and the hate spreads. People who are hateful come together in these groups. And it's kind of surprising. Facebook is still, I think, the number of people gather. And I'm not talking about, some people could turn that on me and say, well, MAGA supporters are hateful. You guys are talking about deporting people and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they broke a law. You guys talking about getting rid of Antifa? Yeah, because they've now been designated a terrorist organization and they are extremely violent and they have proven themselves to be violent. So yes, we absolutely should go through. We should remove them all. Facebook, again, being the largest, I think, area where people can gather. I came across a group of Democrats and there was thousands of members. And in order for you to even join the group, you have to pledge that you hate Donald Trump. Now, why is that allowed on any social media platform? I don't understand it. And yes, if you want to hate Donald Trump, I am perfectly fine with that. You absolutely are entitled to your freedom of speech. But when you get into the group, and I don't know how I even got into the group because I said no, I don't hate Donald Trump, but somehow I ended up in this group and they'll probably kick me out soon enough. But some of the hatred that I saw in there, it really is mind blowing. It's hard to believe that another group of people hate us as much as they do. And when you see these situations, and that's why this whole situation with Charlie Kirk is so confusing to me, why I'm so much on the fence, because it seems so obvious that obvious that here is somebody who is in all these different groups. Messages seem, kind of made up. The language is a little bit strange in some of those messages, but he might be just a really strange guy. Some of the wording he used, I wouldn't use. I wouldn't say, oh, I went to go retrieve the weapon at the drop point and there was a squad car there. Would I use those words? No, I would not. And at first I excused it away because, for a couple days now, a few days, and I said, well, deputy, a sheriff's deputy for 27 years, and he was alive, and that he was brought up, and that would, as one of you pointed out, and Peggy, that might have been you, someone pointed out to me, well, that's not true. And I researched and I looked, I'm like, you're right. There is a man named Matthew Robinson who is not the father of Tyler Robinson, who did work for the local sheriff's department in that area for 20. I do not, as a police officer, he is not affiliated with law enforcement in any way. He is just who learned that his son did something, and is the truth of the matter. Tara posted a link, said shooting. Back and look at that, Tara, because I would really like to know. That's what it's about to me. I just want to know. We have, I don't know about you guys, but when listen, I think that Tucker Carlson tells a lot of truth. I don't blame Israel for the shooting. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that somebody like Netanyahu really cares that much about what Charlie Kirk is saying. Now, there's a lot of talk that Charlie Kirk was offered $150 million to stop talking about Israel, to stop saying that the Israeli government left the border open on October 7th, and to try to stop interviewing people who are Jewish, who are criticizing the Israeli government, is what I'm hearing is at the top of that conversation. Now, Erica Kirk allegedly has said, well, she knows everything. She knows everything that was going on. She knows where all the money was going. And we're told that Charlie Kirk turned down that $150 million. Now, when you have Candace Owens, and it's some people take Candace Owens seriously and some people don't. That's really a matter of choice. I don't really have an opinion on her either way because I've not really followed her that well. I have followed Tucker Carlson, though, for many, many years. And I really do think that he wouldn't be so public coming out and speaking about these things if he didn't think it was true. But I still do not think that the Israeli government is behind the assassination. Now, who is? I don't know. It seems easiest to believe that it was Tyler Robinson, some crazy leftist Antifa loving man. And he climbed up on that roof. He took that shot. He made the shot. He climbed off the roof. He left. There's photos. I'm sure you've seen him very callously going to Dairy Queen, directly after the shooting, but if you just ended the life of somebody you hate, he might be feeling like he's celebrating. I don't expect him to be at home crying, or hiding somewhere. Look at who was that other guy? There was a mass shooter a while back. I can't recall right now who it was. You guys probably know, where he committed this mass shooting. He left and he went down the road and went to McDonald's. Do you remember that? And somebody in McDonald's, I think it was one of the workers, a female worker, who said that looks just like the suspect And sure enough, they contacted police. They absolutely him. Was that the? It wasn't the Parklands. It was the one in New Mexico, I believe. Was it Uvalde? Does that sound right? Uvalde? I can't recall. Maybe you guys know. I don't know if my comment section is working, by the way. I'm having all sorts of problems with my computer, my lights. It's just one of those days. But I want to show a video to you all, two videos actually. Well, technically 3 videos. And this is why these conspiracy theories still exist, is because there's still information we're seeing that makes us think, well, maybe there's more to it. There probably isn't more to it. Again, it probably was Tyler Robinson, somebody who hated Charlie Kirk. But there's other things that come out and you're like, okay, well, maybe there's more to it. That's how we end up in these conspiracy theories. So I'm going to show this video. I'm going to show, let me see where we're going to start here. And start here. This is another gentleman who is seen. Let's see. Good morning, Kimberly, Peggy. And Peggy, which is this video here. Now, this is a guy that is seen at the Charlie Kirk rally that day after the shot was fired, after Charlie. And it looks pretty clear to me that he has in his hand. However, well, let's talk about that after. Let's watch it first.
Gunshot. Look at him. Oh, he's shot, dude. He's shot.
Okay, so we see this guy here, a weapon. But I don't believe, now I could be wrong, I don't believe that they had metal detectors. Did they have metal detectors at this event? I highly doubt it. It's like, working events and working in security, putting people through metal detectors, it takes a really long time, a very long time to go through every person's belongings. There were hundreds to, maybe a couple thousand people at this event. I don't think that they did. So to me, you have a lot of conservative people here, probably a lot of people with concealed carry permits, a lot of people that do carry weapons on them. I personally think when you see that video, that's just somebody in the audience. They heard the shot. They know that there's a threat. And they probably thought, okay, I'm running. And if I encounter this person and they're firing shots, I'm going to be able to, potentially take them out or at least protect myself. Now, that's what I think. Now, some people might turn this around and say, well, maybe this guy is the real shooter. He has a weapon. I don't know that, but I would certainly, bet. Kim said they said there were no metal detectors and they weren't even collecting the tickets. Exactly, Kim. And that makes a lot more sense to me because when you're trying to load people into these events, I did an event one time and I'll just say that Tom Cruise, I've got to be careful what I say when it comes to work. Tom Cruise was at this event and we were doing his security work and we were also doing things of his film. And we had his film in 4 different, I think it was auditorium, through a metal detector, a physical metal detector. It was quite the process. And we're having them walk through the metal detector. We had more than one, I think we had 3 metal detectors set up. We had them walk metal detector, which we set up for them. And then on the other side, there was a very do at an event like this. And it's not, and people want to compare it to a presidential event where you have certain people in there who've had tickets, they've been checked out ahead of time. That it's a whole different story when it comes to Charlie Kirk. And I know he knew that he was under various threat, but I don't think that he thought he had to take the precaution that he really probably should have taken. And so there's probably a lot of people with weapons. I think we can dismiss that as really not being that relevant. Now, I'm not going to play the video for you today because it's really long, but we know that people were talking about the guy in the white t-shirt and the white hat, and that he was giving signals with the other guy with the tattoos on his arm and the black shirt. Well, the guy with the tattoos on his arm and the black shirt, that was Charlie Kirk's not only good friend, but long-term security person. That was his detail. So that person, I would never expect to harm him, want to harm him. I don't think that guy would have made a deal with anyone to harm Charlie Kirk. I really don't. Now, it does look like they were giving signals, but if they were, it was probably more signals like, okay, bring this person up. Okay, we're done with these questions after this question, cut it off. I'm sure they do have hand signals for that type of thing, because the last thing you want to do when you're in this big auditorium style situation, you're, like, okay, that's the last question. You know, a way of telling whoever is with the microphone, okay, that's the last of the hat. That's the last question. Looking at that person, then they're just automatically, you want it to seem like it's seamless, like it's flawless. So you don't want to have all that behind the scenes, chatter going over those things, because it disrupts the event. So I don't think there's anything to those hand signals. Now, that particular guy, he was on Frank Tourette. He was on, was it Hannity last night? I know it was on Fox. I didn't watch it. I saw the video clip. And he really gave a pretty heartbreaking detail of what took place. Now, he is Charlie Kirk's best friend and mentor. Now, one thing stood out to me. Now, I think all of us watched that, as sadly as it is, that was an instant fatality. As soon as Debbie, understood that. And good to know that Charlie probably never even knew that he was shot. That part, of course, we can be thankful for. But what I thought was interesting in him speaking is that he said he heard the shot and he thought it was up close. Now, is that because, and I don't know about the ballistics, maybe some of you do, but if you're standing in the front like he was right behind Charlie, and to Charlie's right of the gunshot, he said, well, I thought it was close. Oh, but it turns out. Now, to me, if he's standing there and he thought it's close, does that mean that maybe it was close? Or did he just hear it as being close, but truly it was far? No. Kelly said, heard Erica was going to sue his security team. I haven't heard that, Kelly. It's certainly a possibility. And because, I could understand her being upset that they didn't do more. In my opinion, that security team where they were standing absolutely should have been watching the roof line. I work in security. I can guarantee you, when we have events for big celebrities or, big names in general, guess what? I'm watching the rooftops if we're outside. I'm watching the doors. I'm looking down the road. I'm watching vehicles on the outside perimeter. I'm watching everything, and I have other people watching everything. His security team, in my opinion, absolutely should have seen that there was someone running on the. How many videos do we have circulating where they show somebody on the roof running, somebody standing up? It wasn't hard to see why they weren't looking and why they didn't see him when so many people did. They should have had people around the perimeter, not just up in the front. Now, I know there were 6 police officers there as well, and I don't know where they were stationed. But from working these types of events, I'm going to assume that Charlie Kirk's security team and those 6 officers were stationed around Charlie Kirk, because that's usually what they do, is they place him around, or at the entrances, exits, etc. And probably not necessarily around the perimeter, because quite honestly, 6 police officers and his handful of security agents, it's really just not enough. It truly isn't. And let's see here. Troy, Tom Cruise doesn't believe in Jesus Christ. He didn't like Charlie Kirk and said something about freedom of speech shouldn't be silenced by anyone. Well, Troy, I have not seen those comments. I don't know whether Tom Cruise believes in Jesus or not. Uh, I couldn't tell you what his personal political beliefs are to be one of us, and I'm going to leave it at that because I don't want to lose my job, and so I'm just going to leave it at that. But I don't know. I love Tom Cruise. I have nothing bad to say about him. I consider him one of us, but that's just my opinion. And if you want to talk about silencing people, speech shouldn't be silenced by anyone. There's a lot of people who feel that way. A lot of people think that if you and quite honestly, a lot of conservative people feel that way. A lot of MAGA supporters feel that way. That even though people were saying some really nasty things online about Charlie Kirk and celebrating his death, that is their right to do so because that's what freedom of speech is about. Now, I think again, it's that slippery slope. It's a very somebody who was assassinated politically. It shows to me that the divide is greater than ever. But I personally did not report anyone for any. It's up to those social media platforms to take those down. Do I think people? If you work in the healthcare industry, and there's a lot of types of jobs. If you're celebrating, you should not have. But do I also think that you have the you should lose your job because so? No question about it. And so that can be definitely the slippery slope. But I want to show one video to you. Now, this is and again, I want to remind everybody, I'm not saying that Tyler Robinson is not the shooter. I'm not saying that any other scenario happened here, but I think that it's our duty to look at other plausible options because I don't trust the government. I don't think you do either. People keep asking me, well, he confessed, he thinks he did it. Yeah, so does Oswald. So do a lot of other patsies. They think they did it because they may have fired a shot, but it doesn't mean they were the one that made the shot. In fact, speaking of that, and now I'm going to show this video to you, and this is going to show, and I hope some of you can decipher this a little bit better than I did. Good morning, Joe. A little bit better than I did because this is it's not a graphic video. It does show Charlie in the moment he was shot, but not the actual shooting. It doesn't show. It only shows up the corner of the top of his head, just so it can you can get the timing right with how things played out. But what you're going to look for, and I'm going to point this out to you here in just a second, you can see a flash. I don't know if the flash is maybe the bullet. And again, I am so sorry for being graphic, but this is just something that I think we have to talk about. Just because what is it? It's an anomaly. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. If this is truly the bullet, then it doesn't make sense with the vantage point. If it's a second shot, then maybe it makes tells us that maybe there was more than one shooter. I don't know. I'm sure investigators do, but they're not going to tell us either way. So I'm going to play this video. I'm going to tell you what you're looking at. I'm going to stop it really quick here. And all right. And Troy says, read about Scientology. Tom is the highest level and they don't believe in Jesus. That is not true, Troy. I actually know a lot about Scientology and I know a lot of Scientologists. And quite honestly, what I don't mean to stop right now, but we'll get back to the video here in a second. But I want to clarify one myth. I do know a lot about Scientology and people in Scientology who are all different faiths. There are Christians, there are people who practice every religion under the sun under Scientology. People will say, well, Scientology is the religion. Well, it is a group of people made up of many different types of religions. And I know I got to be, again, I'm always trying to be careful what I say. Tom Cruise's father-in-law, he was once married to Mimi Rogers, and her father is a good friend of mine. And he actually started from what I understand, the Scientology has that branch in LA where all the celebrities belong to. Well, he started that branch in his basement many years ago. And then it became larger and larger. Now it is the celebrity center in Los Angeles is how I feel that, if I'm saying that correctly. I think that's right. I got to be careful what I say. I don't want to misquote anything. And so I know a lot about Scientology. Now, he is no longer a Scientologist, the guy that I know, Mimi Rogers' father. He is not no longer a Scientologist, but in as a matter of fact, he speaks out against Scientology. So I've gotten to learn a lot about Scientology. And so let's see here. I'm going to backtrack on this video, and I want to show you something here. Then I'm going to stop it. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. Now, what I want you to look at is see the COM right before the O and the M. As soon as Charlie is shot, you will see something in the back there. And I don't know if it's a reflection on the bullet. Some people say it's a muzzle flash. I don't personally think it's a muzzle flash, but you do see it. And I don't know, I'm not going to be able to stop it right on the dot. So I'll probably have to play through that point a couple of times, and let me know if some of you guys have seen this already. And again, I apologize for the graphic nature. See, right through there is where you're going to see it. And then I'm going to backtrack this again. And I just want to know if you guys can see that. I don't know how easy it is to see on this screen, if you can see that flash. I don't have any way to stop it when that flash occurs. But it seems to me it's either a reflection, like maybe it was the bullet passed through and came back through and hit the backdrop between the O and the M. If that happened, then they should be able to find that bullet. And Linda says, got busy and forgot. Good morning, Linda. Linda, you haven't missed much because I'm super tired and just kind of going over things you guys probably already know. So I'm going to play that again. Now, do you see that? I don't know if you guys can see that or not. Right between the O and the M. Did you see it? You got to play it a couple times to really see it. What is that? Something clearly flashes between that O and that M. I don't know what it is. I know I had to play this several times to even see it myself. But to me, it looks like he is shot first, and then you see that little bit of a light. Let's see here. I'm going to play the whole video here for you. So you can judge for yourself on that, but I thought that was kind of interesting, because if the situation is that Charlie was shot through the neck and the bullet exited the other side, then that shows an upward trajectory, because that OM is above his head. That would mean from below. A second bullet, do we see but then what with him being shot? But it happened literally at the very, you mean something. I don't know what that something is. And I just got that video this morning. So I certainly do plan on asking people what their thoughts on that are, because I don't know. But again, this is why people talk about conspiracy theories and why people come up with other ideas of what it could be. And then we've got a video here. Now, there's nothing to this video. I just want to point out. Let's see here. I'm going to show this to you here really quick, and we'll talk about what this is. Let's see. Now, people are saying, "Oh, this is like." I'm gonna cut the sound on that. People are saying, "Oh, look at this guy. Who's this guy? He's back there. He's messing with the camera. He's taking the camera footage out. He's standing on the chair that Charlie Kirk was shot in. But that chair that he's standing on is not. Charlie Kirk was sitting on a stool. He was not sitting on that chair. So there he is. He's taking the camera footage out. So I would really, I don't know if they'll ever release that footage to us, but I would really like to see what that camera saw. And I'm going to go back. As you can see, that same OM, we're going to look where that is again. Okay. So look up here. to, of course, where it says American Comeback. If you look up to the left, that's where that OM is. And COM, I don't really see anything on there that looks like it would be a hole through the material. And I've looked at this. So I don't know if we can consider that conspiracy thought or theory to be very accurate, because I mean, I would think that we'd be able to see there if there was some type of hole, where either a bullet passed through from the front or from the back. So I'm not really sure. But either way, this guy is Charlie Kirk's lead technical guy. He is not doing anything wrong. He's not impeding the investigation. He does not work for the government. He's just taking the footage that belongs to them. I'm kind of surprised, actually, because I would have expected that investigators would have taken that footage. When you have a camera, think about that. There's a camera directly behind Charlie looking out. You would think that the FBI would have taken that camera footage and kept it as part of the investigation, and not, here's this technical guy coming up there and pulling, the information out of the camera. I thought that was kind of a little bit odd, and we don't know. Maybe he gave it to investigators. We're just not sure. But to me, there's still a lot of stuff going on. I still don't fully understand, and I think it's part of just, it still doesn't seem real. Like this really happened. It doesn't seem like Charlie could be gone. And I was looking at photos from when we interviewed him when I was at Real Talk, and I'm like, gosh, it's really, my mind is just. But there's going to be something probably new coming up, and some other rabbit hole to go under. I don't know what to think at this point. I think the most Tyler Robinson, crazy Antifa trans power person who hated Charlie Kirk, hated what Charlie Kirk said. He took it upon himself that day to climb up on the roof. He absolutely, I do believe, had the ability and the knowledge to take a successful shot from that rooftop. Everything we've heard tells us that. I do believe that he did confess, even though the wording sounds strange. He's probably strange, so the wording probably sounds strange. I think the easiest answer is that Tyler Robinson did, and there was nothing else more to it. I certainly don't think Israel was involved in assassinating Charlie Kirk. And Robert says, I wondered about the forward pod camera as a possible shooting apparatus, but what do I know? Robert, you're not the only one. A lot. I don't think I have that on a video, but a lot of other people have said that too. That there was a camera right there. As a matter of fact, had that shot been fired from that camera, it would seem like it would match the angle really well, and it would also make sense to why Frank, his best friend and mentor, said that I thought the shot came from the front. It would absolutely make sense. I don't think that would happen, because that would mean that part of his team, was an accessory, which I certainly don't believe. I don't think anyone else could have. But I'll tell you one thing: we can't rule out. They said there was probably multiple drones. Who knows? I know when I stop, I don't care what the event is or what the situation is. When we see a drone, we stop. We run out. We try to figure out who's operating the drone. And quite honestly, the event cannot continue in most cases if there is a drone, because you don't know what type of threat those drones place. And I know there for sure was a drone, but I'm going to guess that was Charlie's drone that everyone saw. But drones are a big threat these days. There's a lot of things people can do with remote controls. Everybody's like, oh, who's holding a gun in the front of the audience? You don't need a gun these days to take people out. There's a lot of other options. Good morning, Phyllis. And then some of the other things I want to talk about, of course, after Jimmy Kimmel's show was lost, Jimmy Kimmel lost his show. The official reason is because he said on air, there are FCC regulations, by the way, that you cannot knowingly come onto a television show or radio, anything that's governed by the FCC, and knowingly lie. That is something you cannot do. So we had Jimmy Kimmel on his show state that Charlie Kirk was killed by a MAGA supporter when he should have known. And the facts were that that's just simply not true. Now we're told that's why his show ended. A lot of people are saying, well, that might be the excuse his show ended, but really, in fact, his show wasn't making money, hadn't made money in a long time. He was not funny, and I don't know. I've never watched the show, quite honestly. I've met his sister. I've never watched the show. Good morning, Allison. Good to see you, Allison. Of course, with the Washington Guard, and I'm glad his show was canceled. I think he was spewing a lot of hate. I don't care if you're a conservative or if you're a Democrat, a libertarian, somebody who has, no care at all about politics, doesn't matter. If you're on a show and you're spewing hate, then you should not have a show. That simple. You should not have a show. And unfortunately, the liberal media is telling people that Robinson is a conservative. Now, we all know, I'm just preaching to the choir. We all know that's not true. But how many people do you think listen to somebody like Jimmy Kimmel or the people on The View? Or there was a couple of even Democrat members of Congress who are still right now saying that Tyler Robinson is a conservative, that he's a Trump supporter, that he is part of the MAGA movement. And that is 100% not true. We know it's not true. But the problem is that these people are all saying that he is, and the people who listen to them believe them. That's why people have a responsibility to tell the truth, and why sometimes I skirt around things like I am today. There's certain things I don't necessarily want to say. I don't have any way to confirm certain things are true or not true. And that's why I use the word allegedly a lot, because I don't want to get myself in any type of legal trouble by saying that something is a fact when it's not. But Jimmy Kimmel came onto a show. He didn't say allegedly. He didn't follow any of the FCC. He's a reporter. He's part of the MAGA movement. Not true. Lost a show. Again, some people say a lot more about that. It's a lot more about ratings than anything else. That they were probably looking for an excuse to get rid of him. Phyllis says, I have never watched any late night shows. Phyllis, I haven't watched any since Johnny Carson. And even there towards the end of Johnny Carson's show, he was even getting a little political, in some ways that I didn't really care for. He is the I've ever watched was Johnny Carson. I've never watched any other. I don't need to hear any of that nonsense. Joe says, if you look at the past stuff, he has definitely spewed tons of hate over the years. Exactly, Joe. I don't know about you guys, but I feel we are more divided than we've ever been. More divided than we've ever been. And that is largely because of media manipulation. When you have people on the left going out and hosting these different news shows or talk shows, and they're saying, oh, well, guess what? Trump supporter is responsible for killing Charlie Kirk, but yet they're going out and blaming all of you. They're blaming it on the trans movement. They're blaming it on Antifa, but really it was one of them. That's going to anger a lot of people. That what causes copycat situations. That's what happens and causes more people to join groups like Antifa or Trans Power. And it is a very dangerous situation. Robert says they're just not funny. And well, also, I'm so tired of hearing like political jokes on different shows. And I don't watch the shows, but I see the clips here and there. Allison, thank you for bringing that up. Saturday, Washington Guard has a muster in Robertsville. Come learn self-defense, self-reliance, and survival skills. Register as a guest. You can do that at thewashingtonguard.com if anybody's interested in checking out the Washington Guard. Definitely a time for us to have our head on a swivel. Definitely a time we need to be very wary of our surroundings. And Kimberly, absolutely, Obama sparked the fire of division. What did he say the other day? I've got Obama's quote here. Years of complaining about cancel culture, the current administration has taken it to a new and dangerous level by routinely threatening regulatory action against media companies unless they muzzle or fire reporters and commenters it doesn't like. Gee, really? That sounds like a step right out of the Democrat playbook, doesn't it? I remember when some people on January 6th were singing Kumbaya songs and underneath a big flag and just honoring their country. And you had some Antifa members come up and antagonize and start, a near riot there for a few minutes. And what happened to people who were there at J6? They used all of this different types of facial recognition technology where they could recognize people who had nothing but their eyes showing. Remember that? They can't go into a situation like Charlie Kirk's event and use facial recognition to identify people, but they could certainly do it at January 6th, couldn't they? And look what happened then. Anybody who supported January 6th, guess what? They were removed from social media. People had their bank accounts monitored. Remember that? The IRS came out and I can't think of the right word I'm looking for right now, came out and investigated some different people for purchases that they made. I remember those days, those people at January 6th obviously being held in solitary, some of them for many months. They were denied their basic rights. They were not allowed to see their attorneys at times. Terrible situation. And we were all considered terrorists then, remember that? Exactly a page out of the Democrat playbook. I don't even want to hear anything from Obama. In my opinion, he has no business speaking on anything. And that man just irks me. Robert said, divided because we never get the truth. Exactly. Started with Obama, fake birth certificate, didn't even hide the forgery. Because you know why, Robert? Because they don't care if we know. I learned that a long time ago. They do not even care if we know. That's Pennsylvania, to me, was the sloppiest they've ever been. Now, they may have learned a little lesson since then to hide their tracks a little bit better. But when it comes to that Butler, Pennsylvania situation, they did not do a good job hiding the true motive at all. I will never believe the scenario we've been told. And that's why we don't trust anything, because we know they all lie to us. And even under Donald Trump, they're still not telling us the truth. I don't blame that necessarily on him. He doesn't control fully all of these different areas. He certainly doesn't control the CIA. Robert says AI might be the final piece to electronically enslave us. That's a very good possibility. Dottie, 2022, no cancel culture. Nope. Nope. The government lying to us. We're tired of the shoe always being on the other foot, right? What did Democrats do to us? We know what they did. And now all of a sudden, things have changed a little bit. Now we have all of these trans power shooters coming out and we're talking about it, God forbid. We're connecting the dots, putting the puzzle together that we lose Charlie Kirk. And we're wondering what happened and people celebrating his death. Yeah, we're pretty angry. I don't think that's going to be. And scheduled to speak at CSU. I saw that. And Robert, the crowd showed up anyway. Now I think you may not think it's as funny as I do, but take a look at this. Oh, Robert says, what did you say? Oh, Fallon is next. Yeah, I have heard that he is really pushing his luck also. I don't watch his show. I'm not surprised by that. He seems like he probably toes the line. But I thought this was a pretty funny introduction to a show because guess what? Everybody's scared that they're going to get
From Comedy Central, it's the all-new government-approved Daily Show. With your patriotically obedient host, Jon Stewart.
Okay, I don't like Jon Stewart. I don't watch his show. I've never watched his show. I honestly don't know who he was. But I thought that was so funny, and I see that he's poking fun at the situation, out a message as well, also probably agreeing with Obama, but I still saw the humor in it because he comes on, he's got all his flags and stuff, gold background, because we all know Trump's flamboyant style with all of the gold accents. But I actually thought that was hilarious. I'm too tired right now to laugh or seem like anything is hilarious, but I did think it was. And I'm sure on their end, of course, they're going to play it up to the hilt that, oh, you have to be MAGA, now you have to be conservative, you have to support Trump, or you don't have a show. And I'll bet you anything the views be an awfully darn quiet. Because to me, they should have gone before Kimmel. No question about it. They're probably also on the chopping block next. All right, guys, I don't really have anything else to talk about. And I'm going to apologize now for not doing a great show today. I'm exhausted. This morning, I'm like, I'm not even going to do a show. I owe it to people to put something better out there, but I am too tired to even hardly put anything together. It's been a long, grueling week of work. Next week is going to be the same thing. I'm going to be working on the same project Monday through Thursday next week. Unless I don't see how I could even have an evening show because I'm driving 2 hours in the morning. I'm working 12 to 13 hours and taking that 2 hour drive back home and going back and forth. And I'm going to figure out something. I'm going to talk to Colonel Joe Adams. Maybe he might want to host a show, see if maybe a couple other people might want to host a show and see if we have some content for everybody that's going to be a whole lot better than my show was today. Thankfully, this is just a little fun hobby podcast. Good morning, Jason. Good to see you this morning. So that's going on with this show and project. So I have been working out of town. Back today, I work again tomorrow, off on Sunday, and then back on the same project from Monday through Thursday. I think it's through Thursday. It might be just through Wednesday of next week. I need to go back and look at the schedule. But either way, thank you all for joining me today. I will do much better whenever I see you all next. We'll go. Yes, thank you, Phyllis. I definitely do need to rest. Thank you, Pam. You guys probably can't see me. I have like dark circles under my eyes, and I am so sore. I can barely even walk. But I will be okay. I'll be okay. I do thank you guys for joining me today for what little I did have to put forward. And we will see you all sooner or later next week. I'll keep everybody updated. Thank you again. I'm Tabitha Hassell with Tabs on Tap, and I hope you all have a really fantastic weekend.